President Ronald Reagan. On March 30th, 1981, Ronald Reagan, the 40th president, was leaving the Washington Hilton Hotel after giving a speech when a man named John Hinckley Jr. made his move to kill him. Hinckley was just 25 years old, obsessed with actress Jodie Foster, and believed that assassinating Reagan would somehow impress her. So, there Reagan was, walking to his limousine when Hinckley fired 6 shots in 1.7 seconds. Reagan was hit by a ricocheted bullet that punctured his lung. 3 others were also injured, including Press Secretary James Brady, who was left permanently disabled. Hinckley didn't try to escape. He was immediately subdued by Secret Service agents and arrested. He claimed his motive was to gain fame and win Foster's attention, a delusion fueled by his mental illness. Hinckley was found not guilty by reason of insanity, which caused public outrage and led to significant changes in the U.S. legal system regarding the insanity defense. Hinckley's trial and subsequent institutionalization were shrouded in controversy. Many wondered how a young man from a privileged background whose father was a wealthy oil executive could fall so far. There were even conspiracy theories suggesting he had connections to powerful political families, but these were largely debunked. Today, Hinckley lives under strict supervision after being released from a psychiatric hospital in 2016. He remains a figure of infamy, with many people still fascinated by the weird circumstances that led him to attempt one of the most notorious assassination attempts in American history. President Gerald Ford. Do you know that a woman tried to take out President Gerald Ford in 1975? Her name was Sara Jane Moore. Born on February 15, 1930 in Charleston, West Virginia, Moore led a fairly unremarkable early life. She worked as a bookkeeper and a nurse, even serving as an informant for the FBI. But things took a surprising turn as she got involved with radical political groups in the turbulent 1970s. On September 22, 1975, Moore decided to kill the president. Standing across the street from the St. Francis Hotel in San Francisco, where Ford was exiting after a meeting, she pulled out a .38 caliber revolver and fired a shot. Luckily, she missed. A bystander, a former Marine named Oliver Sipple, quickly grabbed her arm, causing her second shot to go astray. Moore was immediately apprehended by the authorities. She claimed that she wanted to bring about a change and that assassinating Ford seemed like a way to make a significant impact. Moore was sentenced to life in prison, but was released on parole in 2007 after serving 32 years. Theories about Moore's motives range from her desire for crime to deeper political beliefs influenced by her connections with leftist groups. She later expressed regret for her actions, stating that she had been misguided. But that wasn't the first time someone tried to send Ford to his grave. 17 days before Sara Jane Moore's attempt, Lynette "Squeaky" Fromme, a member of the infamous Manson family, made her own assassination attempt. Born on October 22, 1948 in Santa Monica, California, Fromme had a troubled childhood. She eventually fell under the spell of Charles Manson and became one of the most loyal followers. On September 5, 1975, Fromme approached President Ford in Sacramento, California. She was wearing a bright red robe and carried a Colt .45 semi-automatic pistol. As Ford walked through the grounds of the California State Capitol, Fromme stepped out from the crowd, raised her gun, and pointed it at him. Fortunately, the gun didn't fire because there was no round in the chamber. Secret Service agents quickly subdued her, and she was arrested on the spot. Fromme claimed her motive was to draw attention to environmental issues and to Manson, who was serving a life sentence for his role in the Tate LaBianca murders. She was sentenced to life in prison for the assassination attempt. In 1987, she escaped from prison briefly, but was recaptured 2 days later. Released on parole in 2009, Fromme has kept a low profile since. There are numerous theories about why she acted. Some suggest it was purely to gain attention for her causes, while others believe it was an act of loyalty to Manson. President Andrew Jackson. Let's go back to 1835, when Richard Lawrence, a deranged house painter, tried to take out President Andrew Jackson. This was the first known attempt on a U.S. president's life. Lawrence, born in England and later moving to the U.S., became convinced that he was the rightful heir to the British throne and that Jackson was preventing him from claiming a large sum of money. On January 30th, 1835, as Jackson was leaving a funeral at the Capitol, Lawrence jumped out from behind a pillar and aimed a pistol at him. Incredibly, the gun misfired. Not one to be easily discouraged, Lawrence pulled out a second pistol. And guess what? That one misfired too. Talk about bad luck, or maybe just poor gun maintenance. The 67-year-old Jackson, a former general known for his temper, wasn't about to wait for a third try. He charged at Lawrence with his cane, beating him until others subdued Lawrence. The would-be assassin was arrested and later found to be criminally insane, spending the rest of his life in mental institutions. People were baffled by Lawrence's actions. Some conspiracy theories suggest he was part of a larger plot, but nothing concrete ever came of it. Lawrence claimed Jackson had killed his father, which was entirely fabricated. President Richard Nixon. Now, here's someone who decided that flying a plane into the White House was a good idea. His name is Samuel Bike, a man whose plan was as bold as it was bizarre. Some conspiracy theorists believe that Bike had something bigger up his sleeves, but most agree it was just the desperate move of a troubled individual. But how did it all start? Samuel Bike was born into a Jewish family in South Philadelphia. He left high school in the 9th grade to help support his struggling family. Bike joined the U.S. Army in 1954 and received an honorable discharge 2 years later. After his military service, he got married and became a father to 4 children. On February 22, 1974, Bike attempted to hijack a plane from Baltimore Washington International Airport with the intention of crashing it into the White House and killing President Richard Nixon. Bike had a history of mental illnesses and had grown increasingly angry with the government, believing it was responsible for all his personal and financial troubles. Armed with a revolver and a homemade bomb, Bike stormed onto Delta Airlines Flight 523. He shot and killed an airport security guard and forced his way into the cockpit, demanding that the pilots take off. When the pilots told him they couldn't take off without removing the wheel chocks, Bike shot both of them, killing one. However, police had already surrounded the plane. After a tense standoff, Bike was shot through the plane door by law enforcement. Mortally wounded, he managed to shoot himself in the head, ending his life before his wild plan could fully be realized. Bike's motive was a result of his intense frustration with the government, a theme that resonated through his rambling tape recordings sent to various public figures. If you ever wonder what pushes someone to such extremes, Bike's story reminds you of the tragic outcomes of untreated mental illness and unchecked anger. President George Bush. This next guy almost killed 2 presidents at once. On May 10, 2005, Vladimir Arutyunian threw a live grenade at American President George Bush and Georgian President Mikhail Saakashvili, who were addressing a crowd of thousands. Arutyunian, standing about 100 feet away, hurled a grenade wrapped in a red handkerchief toward the podium. The grenade landed just 65 feet from the presidents, but by sheer luck, failed to detonate due to malfunction. But who is this guy? Where did he come from? Vladimir Arutyunian, a Georgian citizen of Armenian descent, was born on March 12, 1978, in Tbilisi, Soviet Georgia. He lost his father at a young age and was raised by his mother, who worked as a market stallholder. They resided in one of the poorest areas of Tbilisi. After finishing high school, Arutyunian did not hold a stable job. In January 2004, Arutyunian became a member of the Democratic Union for Revival, a party led by Aslan Abashids. However, he soon left the organization. He joined the Revival Party the same month Mikhail Saakashvili became president of Georgia. Arutyunian's motive was rooted in his deep-seated hatred for both the US and the Georgian governments. He believed that by assassinating Bush, he would make a significant political statement. After the failed assassination attempt, Arutyunian fled the scene and managed to escape capture for nearly 2 months. When authorities finally tracked him down, there was a dramatic standoff at his home. Arutyunian killed 1 police officer during the confrontation, but was eventually captured and brought to justice. Arutyunian is currently serving a life sentence in a Georgian prison. President Barack Obama. When Oscar Ramiro Ortega Hernandez decided to take a shot at the White House, it wasn't to become a president. It was to kill Obama, the sitting president. Oscar, who was from Idaho Falls, Idaho, left home on October 23rd, stating that he was going to Utah for business. His family reported him missing on October 31st. Before he left, he became increasingly paranoid, believing the US government was manipulating citizens and that President Obama had to be stopped. He made strange assertions, like Obama planning to implant GPS devices in children and that the world would end in 2012. He even recorded a video for Oprah Winfrey, claiming to be Jesus and requesting to appear on her show. On November 11, 2011, Oscar drove from Idaho to Washington, D.C., armed with a semi-automatic rifle. He parked his car near the National Mall and fired several shots at the White House, hoping to hit President Obama. Fortunately, Obama and his family were away at the time, and no one was injured. The bullets, however, did hit the White House, causing damage. Oscar didn't stick around to see the aftermath. He fled the scene, triggering a nationwide manhunt. He was captured 5 days later at a hotel in Pennsylvania. Authorities found his abandoned car with a rifle and more ammunition inside. Oscar claimed he was acting on orders from God to fight government corruption. Today, he's serving a 25-year prison sentence for attempting to assassinate the president and damaging federal property. President Harry S. Truman. On November 1, 1950, two Puerto Rican nationalists, Oscar Collazo and Griselio Torresola, attempted to assassinate President Harry S. Truman. Truman was staying at Blair House, the temporary White House, while the actual White House was undergoing renovations. Oscar Collazo, born in Puerto Rico, had moved to New York and joined the Puerto Rican Nationalist Party. Griselio Torresola, also from Puerto Rico, was deeply involved in the nationalist movement and had a personal vendetta due to his sister's imprisonment for nationalist activities. Their plan was straightforward but bold. They aimed to storm Blair House and kill Truman to draw attention to the Puerto Rican independence cause. Torresola approached the Blair House from the west side, while Collazo went to the east. Torresola managed to shoot a White House policeman, Leslie Caulfield, who, despite being mortally wounded, returned fire and killed Torresola. Collazo was shot and subdued by other guards before he could enter the house. The botched attempt ended with Torresola dead and Collazo captured. Collazo was initially sentenced to death, but Truman later commuted his sentence to life in prison. He was released in 1979 after serving 29 years. President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Here's a very narrow escape from death that involves President Roosevelt and John F. Schrank, a man who almost changed history. From Bavaria, Germany, Schrank immigrated to the United States as a young boy, settling in New York City. He led a relatively quiet life, working as a bartender and a saloon keeper. However, he started showing signs of mental instability, often having vivid dreams and visions. Schrank became convinced that former President Theodore Roosevelt was a threat to the country. This belief stemmed from a dream in which the ghost President William McKinley accused Roosevelt of orchestrating his assassination. Fueled by this delusion, Schrank decided to take matters into his own hands. On October 14, 1912, while Roosevelt was campaigning for the presidency in Milwaukee, Schrank saw his chance. As Roosevelt stood in an open waving to the crowd, Schrank fired a single shot from a .38 caliber revolver. The bullet struck Roosevelt in the chest, but was miraculously slowed down by a thick speech manuscript and a metal eyeglass case in his pocket. Despite being wounded, Roosevelt insisted on delivering his 90-minute speech before seeking medical attention, famously stating, "It takes more than that to kill a bull moose." Schrank was immediately subdued and arrested. Schrank was declared insane and spent the rest of his life in a mental institution. He never expressed remorse for his actions, firmly believing he had saved the country. Former President Trump. If you think people don't have the balls to carry out an assassination on a US president or former US president in 2024, then this next guy will change your mind. Meet Thomas Matthew Crooks, a 20-year-old who stunned everyone with his audacious attempt on former President Trump. Born in 2004 in a small town in Pennsylvania, Crooks had a troubled upbringing. He struggled with bullying at school and was regarded as an introvert who kept to himself most of the time. On a July day in 2024, Crooks attempted to assassinate Trump during a public event near Butler in Meridian, Pennsylvania. Armed with a high-powered rifle, he managed to get into a strategic position on a rooftop close to the rally. However, Crooks was taken down by the Secret Service after firing shots at Trump, one of which grazed the man's ear. The boy was immediately killed. The investigation into Crooks' motives is still ongoing, with many questions left unanswered. Was he just a lone wolf driven by madness? Or did he have connections to larger extremist groups? This has led to widespread calls for stricter security measures to protect public figures. Which of these assassination attempts surprised you the most? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. For more interesting content like this one, hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell. Don't miss out on any of our stories. See you in the next video.